So now, okay, cat's out of the bag. Beta cells can be regenerated with things that are relatively accessible to us, those with diabetes, right? So as with any research topic in diabetes, like stem cells, we've grown immune to any sort of positivity in the research. Why? It's slow. It's a very slow process. From getting funds, getting trials canceled and started and canceled again, bridging the gap between, it looks really promising in animal models, why can't we get it to human trials, right? You kind of have to go through that noise. Harmine also has some social obstacles to overcome because of its association with ayahuasca and psychedelics. The spiritual realm is not at all welcome in the very kind of like clear-cut, cold, clinical aspects of modern medicine. Ayahuasca is something that, with a lot of different variables, that does not necessarily mesh with how modern medicine does business. Something to consider. And then for you and me, dealing with diabetes, wondering how we can implement this for ourselves, what do we need to be mindful of? One of the slides before, we mentioned that there weren't any disruptive effects of using harmine, right? Too much, too little. How do we know what the right dose is and what's too much? How long do you use it? That kind of thing. And so you have to experiment. And that's kind of what you see in those pictures here. So I was actually able to get my hands on Syrian rue, which, like I mentioned, is kind of like an everyday shrub in dry, sandy, arid conditions, a lot in the Mediterranean, some in the US Southwest. And what I did was I bought the seeds, I ground them up into a powder, and I stuffed them myself into capsules. And I started to kind of play around with combining harmine with natural GLP-1s. So going back to, where does harmine come from? I chose Syrian rue because of its accessibility, because I could ground it up and put it into capsules. I have since tried passion flower tea, which is not all that uncommon. I've also used Aztec tobacco, Nicotiana rustica. It's not like your average cigarette tobacco. You're going to have to look a little bit harder. It's a little bit more of a specialty purchase. And then again, I can't condone any sort of illegal activity or anything like that, but people are experimenting with ayahuasca. I have heard anecdotal reports of people having success on these ayahuasca retreats. I haven't done it myself. I can't speak to it, but by the plant compounds and what's actually in them, I'm not ready to count them out. So you have your harmine, right? These are kind of your possibilities for getting doses of harmine. How do we get our natural doses of GLP-1s without signing up for all of those extra pharmaceutical exenatide, Ozempic stuff? Because that stuff is not to be relied on. Nature is rife with GLP-1s. You'd be surprised. This is just one paper documenting a lot of things that you can use that have a similar effect to GLP-1s. Berberine is one I'm most familiar with and have used the most. Resveratrol, which is a potent antioxidant. Curcumin, which is the active component found in turmeric. Green and black tea. Gardenia. Cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon specifically, is usually what's recommended for people with diabetes, and soybeans as well. Okay. For those soybeans, you are obviously going to avoid genetically modified, processed beans. You want to stick to organic if you can find them. So I have been playing around for a good while now, probably over a year and a half, on combining these two, right? The DYRK1 inhibitors and the GLP-1 agonists. I've done the passion flower tea. I've done the ground Syrian rue in capsules. I actually have them right here. And then Aztec tobacco. I actually did buy Aztec tobacco as well. You can use it in a tea. You can roll it and smoke it in a cigarette. You know, any way. In higher doses, you're going to kind of like feel the effects of the monoamine oxidase. But again, you have to proceed with caution. You have to proceed with what you feel comfortable with. Of course, none of this is medical advice. Proceed at your own risk. GLP-1 agonists: berberine, Ceylon cinnamon, green, black tea, turmeric, and black pepper. These are things that I am combining with the DYRK inhibitors to see if I can get some beta cell activity. How I would be measuring beta cell activity: what's my insulin usage like? Am I needing as much? And here's what I saw. And I lost my mind when I first started with these Syrian rue capsules about a year and a half ago now. Within the first 4 weeks, huge decreases in my basal rates. Big time. I was on the pump at the time, and I was needing significantly less insulin, to the point where I was like, oh, like it was happening too fast for me. I was like, what is going on? That decrease plateaued after 1 to 2 months. And when you look, there are a couple more papers too that showcase that that's expected. If you use harmine too much, your body can adjust to that and it kind of loses its effect. So I kind of have since been cycling it on and off as I've gone on. But I've continued implementing other sources of harmine: passion flower tea, Aztec tobacco, and all mixed in with some form of GLP-1 agonist, whether that be berberine, quercetin, resveratrol, curcumin. These are all documented GLP-1 agonists of a natural origin. Now, why did it plateau? Why didn't it finish the job, go all the way? Why didn't I get totally off insulin? I didn't at the time account for any of the autoimmunity factors. I was offloading iron. I was rebuilding my mineral status to mitigate kind of the residual oxidative stress that I had going on at my day-to-day pace. But there may still have been something going on that was killing off some of the beta cells that I was regrowing. So I may have been taking 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps back, and then 1 step forward, right, and kind of breaking even at the end of the day. So beta cells may have been regenerating, but if my immune system wasn't calibrated, those newly grown cells would still be targeted. Okay. So now moving forward, we want to continue to harness the harmine and GLP-1's ability to boost beta cell regeneration. But now, how can we targetedly mitigate our autoimmunity and our immune system's ability to trust the new beta cells that are here and allow for them to flourish? Okay, and I've just gotten excited about the thymus gland and its ability to help reprogram autoimmunity. So I'm going to be experimenting in modulating the thymus gland to allow for what new beta cells I'm getting with the harmine and the GLP-1s to actually stay there and grow. Okay, so that's where I'm at with that. Harmine is a very, very interesting compound. And if you do a simple Google search of harmine and diabetes, you're going to get a lot of great resources and great papers talking about the effects of harmine on the diabetic model.